In June 2001, I watched a movie called Hysteria, the Def Leppard story. And there's a scene in that movie where Steve Clark, or the actor who plays Steve Clark, auditions to join the band, which later becomes Def Leppard, by playing some cheesy 80s hair metal guitar licks. And back then, I thought it was the coolest freaking thing I've ever seen, and when I saw him play it, I thought, I must learn to play like this. And so that scene was the inspiration that made me want to pick up the guitar. Now, unfortunately, when I picked up the guitar, I had two very negative thoughts in my mind about my potential to become a good guitar player, and they related to natural talent. One, I thought that you needed a ton of natural talent to become a good guitar player, and I also believed that I had none of it. But given that I really wanted to become a good guitar player, or at least I wanted to see how good of a guitar player I could become, I decided to push my concerns about natural talent, or my lack of it, aside, and just practice guitar 5 hours per day instead. But still, whenever I heard other guitar players play, whether it was at my high school or the local guitar center, or when I started reading interviews by famous players, everybody seemed to be giving me conflicting information about what natural talent even was, and what role it played, if any at all, on our potential, and whether I had it, or how much of it I needed, all that sort of a thing. In the meantime, though, because I never gave up, and because I spent all my money and time on practicing and looking for the best guitar teachers I could find, instead of going to prom or getting a girlfriend or buying my first car, I actually became a pretty decent guitar player, much better than I thought I'd be by the time I graduated high school. And around that time, I shifted my view of natural talent 180 degrees. I started to think that, hey, if I could learn to become a decent guitar player way better than I thought I'd ever become, anybody with average intelligence and average work ethic could learn to do the same. But then, two things happened to throw me for a loop once again. One, I started teaching guitar and dealing with other people and helping them learn to play guitar. And two, I went to music school. And in music school, when I took an ear training class in particular, I became aware of just how bad my ear was, and that was the closest I ever seriously came to quitting music altogether, because here I was, I already had pretty decent technique and speed and physical level in my playing, my music theory knowledge was pretty good, but I could not do any of the ear training assignments we were doing, and everybody around me seemed to get the stuff much faster than me. Fortunately, through a lot of hard work, a lot of trial and error, and a lot of mistakes, I later caught up and my ear training became on par with everybody else in the class. That's largely due to something I've later called retroactive progress, but also at the same time I began teaching guitar, and a lot of people who were coming to me for help with their technique and speed, I noticed that they were having a much harder time than I did developing their technique compared to me. So that again made me doubtful about what natural talent even is, what role it plays, and why is it that we seem to get some things much faster than others. And there are so many things that came, as I later learned, relatively easy to me compared to other people, but then other skills about music and guitar became much harder. Ear training was one example, learning to play rhythm guitar in time was another. Before we can talk about the role of natural talent, we need to first get clear on what natural talent even means, because if we don't have a definition that we all agree upon, we're all going to be throwing around this term natural talent, and each of us can think it means something else. But the definition of natural talent that I've come to really like, and you can take it or leave it, is natural tendency to do the right things when you're learning a skill. When it comes to guitar, some examples of that can be naturally figuring out the best or the most optimal way to hold the pick the first time you pick it up, or after you play a few notes, you naturally settle on a way of holding the pick that doesn't create any bad habits in your playing, and then you continue to develop your picking technique faster because of that. Same goes for ability to stay relaxed when you play and use proper fretting hand motions and so on. Or whenever somebody tells you how to fret notes, you quickly understand what's not being said. Like for example, when somebody tells you to fret a note, you don't automatically squeeze your shoulder and get everything tense right here. You apply pressure the right way, where you get a clear note without extra tension happening. Or when you're learning music theory, nobody knows what, let's say, secondary dominant chords are the first time you open up a music theory textbook. You have to learn what that stuff is, but some people are just naturally faster at understanding music theory concept than others. And because there's such a vast myriad of skills and micro elements that go into playing guitar, both in developing your physical technique, your musical ability, and then your ability to tie it all together and be creative, that it's virtually impossible for somebody to have natural talent across all of them and be so naturally talented in all of them that learning guitar just becomes completely effortless for that person.
The first year that I played, I was self-taught, so I didn't have a teacher, and I did so many things wrong. I don't know why, but for the first year that I played, I only did upstrokes. And I also only used my middle finger in my left hand. And I only used one string, the low E. And so I would play things, like Led Zeppelin. I'd go. And then I took some guitar lessons, and things went much better from there.
And on the flip side of that, I have yet to see anybody so uncoordinated and so, for lack of a better word, stupid that they couldn't understand anything about guitar or anything about technique when a competent teacher taught them how to do things the right way, or showed them the right way to do things, or trained them or explained them in ways that started to make sense. Because both extremes are pretty much equally rare, we're all somewhere in the middle. So you may understand music theory really fast the moment you read it in a music theory book, but you may struggle to develop your physical technique, or vice versa. Maybe you have perfect pitch, but you struggle to develop your phrasing and vibrato. So, you name it. We could crisscross different combinations of skills any way you want. Instead of worrying about how much natural talent you do or don't have, I find it better to just simply focus on knowing what you need to do to develop skills in a certain area, whether it is to master your picking technique, or understand music theory, or train your ear, or be creative, whatever the case is. There is a process you go through to get from A to Z. And yes, some people go through that process naturally faster, even without a teacher, because they just have natural inclination to do things the right way. But anybody can figure out what these things are and travel the same path at basically the same pace. What I'm finding more and more is that all these abstract concepts we often argue about, like guitar technique and the best ways to develop it, guitar speed and the best ways to build speed, and natural talent and its role in our potential, is that all these things are not just one thing. There are many elements that go into it, like guitar technique. There are many building blocks, many elements of guitar technique. Speed, same thing. Natural talent, it's not just one thing either. And when it comes to practicing guitar, it's also a compound skill. It's composed of many different elements that go into your ability to practice guitar. And the better you are at each one, the better you are at developing skills and solving problems, which are the two primary things that guitar practice is really all about. On that note, if you want some help with developing your guitar practice chops and squeezing more progress out of whatever practice time you've got, hit the link in the description of this video. Go to the page on the screen right now. I'm going to show you a free 1-hour masterclass called Guitar Playing Progress Accelerators. These guitar practice strategies that I discovered after over 20 years of playing and teaching guitar help you improve faster whether you've got 3 hours to practice or 30 minutes to practice. In fact, the less practice time you've got, the more these things will help you, because the more each minute counts as a greater percentage of your overall practice time. So if you want to know what these things are, check out the link, enter your email address, I'll send you the video for free. And now that you hopefully believe in your guitar playing potential a little bit more, watch this video right here where I show you the best ways to create needle-moving guitar practice schedules that make you better each time you pick up your guitar. So watch that video next.